Hi there, my name is Ewan Nicholson. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Remembering Love. Today, the title of today's video is how do we access the tensionless nature of nature to help heal childhood trauma? So what you'll find is if you're somewhere in your journey of healing childhood trauma, there are a lot of modalities, activities, therapies, interventions, information, resources that you'll be able to access in that process. This YouTube video being one of them. So what you'll find is as you go through this process, there is a lot of choice, and sometimes that choice can be kind of a little bit overwhelming or becomes very complicated. And all of these modalities, or many of these modalities, can be very helpful, will support you, move you forward, and have a lot of credibility and use. But sometimes in the process of exploring all the various options and therapies and somatic therapies and cognitive therapy and inner child work and books and resources, we can miss out a little bit on some of the most basic things that we can employ to support us getting to a sort of a healthier, more serene place inside ourselves, which is really the goal of all healing, is how do we arrive at a point where we feel more at peace, more at ease, and more trust and safety within our lives. And one of the resources that we have all the time, everywhere, is our access to nature. Now, even if you live in a city, you still go outside, you still have access to the sky. Maybe in some cities you still can see a few stars. In cities there are parks. Now obviously if you live out in the country, it's different altogether. But even in city environments, we still get to go outside and we still get to take in the sun, we get to feel the rain. That nature is not something that's necessarily available to us, it's the sea we swim in. I think it's important to not miss that, not miss the simplicity of, within all the things we can choose from to help us, there is a resource there in nature that is just there all the time. And because it is there all the time, and it is the kind of the air we breathe, literally and metaphorically, it can be very easy to forget how powerful it is in this healing process. And we now live in a society that's very alienated to some degree. The way we live in terms of, I live in a large apartment block, which is rectangular shaped. I have a house with rectangular rooms. I'm looking at a rectangular object to film this. You're probably looking at a similar one to watch it. And our lives are very boxed and kind of squared in on some levels. And with that, it can be very easy to lose connection with nature and the value of nature. Because one of the things you see in nature is a tensionlessness, that nature is just what it is. The sun doesn't stress out about shining, the clouds don't get depressed. There isn't, in the animal kingdom, the insect kingdom, the birds, the trees, the rivers, the seas, you see it in motion and movement, and there is a tensionlessness in it. And by tensionless, I don't mean that there isn't movement and activity. Obviously you have waves, tornadoes, rain, the trees sway, etc. It's in constant motion. But the tension I'm talking about is the tension that we as humans have seemed to have accumulated, particularly as adults, where we run our lives in a certain way, where we feel a lot of stress and we feel a lot of opposition with reality. In the community where I live, there's like a community pool. So I go down to the pool and you see a little group of 3-year-olds playing, and they do not have the tension that we have. They run, they laugh, they fall, they cry, they jump, they swim. And even my teenage daughters who are moving into their adultness, you can still see that ability to play, that ability to engage and not to be too lost in their mind. Now, probably over time, they'll lose that like the rest of us, sadly. But you can still see it at 12 and 13. It's still in them, that feeling of being in the present, of engaging and being playful. It's just something to be aware of, that is something that we can really take notice of and aim to kind of feel it. So when you go outside is to really just to observe it, to recognize and feel the sun on your face, or to hear the pitter-patter of rain, and to just take in that serene and effortless nature of nature, the tensionlessness of our natural world. And to realize that tensionlessness is not something separate to us, that nature, as we look at it externally, isn't this external series of objects moving. It is us. We are our environments. We are not separate. So that tensionlessness we observe in the sea or a river or a tree, that's ours as well. That is in us. We didn't come into this world full of tension, stress, agitation, and trauma. It accumulates, we adapt, we cope. And as survivors of childhood trauma, some of that tension is quite acute in us. And it can feel like that's just the way it is. And nature gives us an opportunity to reconnect and remember that tensionless state that we all have inside of us, that we had as children, that we just have as part of our nature. So I would advise that, to use that resource, to be aware that every time you step outside, you're stepping into a tensionless space. That when you see the sun shining, when you look at the trees, is to recognize and observe that effortless motion that is nature. And that effortless motion is you as well, that is in you. And to remember it and recognize it helps us stay connected to that feeling. So for me, in my journey of healing childhood trauma, connecting with nature, I'm very lucky I live near a beach, so to go into the sea, to this kind of living body of water, to feel it, to take it in, to lie in the sand, to observe a sunset, all these things are daily rituals that I really feel have had immense benefit and just keep me connected to that feeling that there is a serenity in me. And at times it can feel hard to access, and at times I feel quite disassociated or disconnected with it. But nature is this ongoing, infinite reminder that our natural state is tensionless. And it's very interesting that you hear these stories of people at the end of their life, come to grips with certain things, and they use this statement that he seemed to make peace with the world, or he made peace with himself. And obviously when you say that about someone at the end of their life, the assumption is, or the recognition is, that they weren't in peace, that we have to get to this point of death where we say, okay, I'm going to let go and just accept and be at peace. Now obviously, to me it's a better idea not to wait till we have to die to make peace with ourselves, with the world. And if you want an example of what is something that is at peace, it's our natural world. In all its movement and motion and dynamism, it is what it is. There is an isness and beingness to nature that isn't in conflict with itself. And that sets a great opportunity for us to connect with that, to make peace with ourselves, to see nature as a living, breathing piece in motion. And as you feel that, as you remember that, as you reconnect with that, you can read all the books in the world, and I do, and I continue to do, and I do all the various therapies, and they've all helped. But I have this resource that I keep coming back to, which is the sun, the sky, the clouds, the mountains, the lakes, etc. And it's never going away. It's part of who I am. It's with me. I would advise that if you can, bring your attention to that, consciously focus on that, and it'll make a big difference in the process of your own healing. Okay, thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. Please, if you've enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and hope you have a good week. Take care.